And today it's a fourth in a series on complaint-free world based on this book by Will Bowen. And there's a nice thing about this last phase is about being unconscious competence. Unconscious competence is really then when it's no longer a thought. Because what happens is we start to have changes. We start to have changes in our attitude and our perception and how we view the world. So when we stop complaining, and all of a sudden I realize I just spit, sorry. I saw the spray. I've got to move back. Anyway, it changes our feelings about how we look at life and how things go. And so it's like the smile doesn't surprise me too much. It also is the fact that when you start thinking that good things happen to you as a matter of fact. That rather than when things happen to you when they're not going the way you want, you don't say, of course that always happens to me, because that's a negative thought. You reframe it immediately because it's the healing at that moment. And you say, I choose differently. And of course life should give me the best. Of course life should be easy. Of course life should be thriving. Of course life should be fun. I should be happy. And last, you get joy out of being a victim. You might. Because what you're going to notice as you go through this phase is that you no longer are going to be comfortable in the company of people who complain all the time. It becomes like a din, a noise that's intolerable. Now, you don't go become a bracelet cop. You don't start saying, oh, you're complaining. There's a better thing. You just observe. And you just choose. You choose to be different. You choose to be the positive motivator. You choose to be that which is different. So today we're going to be talking about mastery and the 21-day champions. And conclusion, we're talking about entering into a new era of life, because that's what it's really, that's why we're doing this. We're doing this to wake up our consciousness. So it becomes just a routine. Earl Musselman said, the sun was shining in my eyes and I could barely see. To do the necessary task that was allotted me. Resentment of the vivid glow, I started to complain. When all at once upon the air, I heard the blind man's cane. Wow. What that said to me is that, when you're blind, you don't see the world out here. Now, I don't know, but I'm guessing they make up a perception or their image of what the world's about, right? Mm-hmm. So it's all about perception. Mm-hmm. Helen Keller taught us that. It's all about perception. There is a fish in the United States called the cave fish. It's a blind fish. It is a fish that lives in the caves around the Mississippi. For those of you who are from the South or live around the Mississippi. And what they think happened is millions of years ago, these fish got trapped into these caves where there's running water. And that since they lived in total darkness, there was no reason for them to see. So what happened is over the evolution, their eyes started to disappear. And if you look them up and Google them, which of course I did, you will find that there are these species, all but I guess one of them, no longer have eyes. It's all perception. They exist. They grow up to be 5 inches long. They thrive. So it's all about perception. And what we do is, after you get through this 21 days, if you're willing to try and do this, you too can change. You too can change and see with new eyes. You can see with new eyes that are no longer looking at a world to complain about, but it's a world to celebrate, to be happy about, to thrive, and be joyful that you're living in it. Greatness does not approach him who is forever looking down. Can you imagine how approachable I am at this moment? Where will the greatness find me? We look up and we say, of course. Last week I told the story of the guy who borrowed the truck, and he went and he was running out of oil, and he found all these good Samaritans to help him, and he kept saying, of course, of course. Well, I started practicing it then. I've been practicing it all week. I was running low on coffee, so I went to Ralph's, and I said, you know, Starbucks is pretty expensive. I would like to see it, and they have it on sale once in a while. And I said, so I'm expecting to see it on sale. Of course. $9 coffee on sale for $7. I bought 2 of them. Of course. I needed to move my car out of my parking lot while they were repairing the roof on Thursday. My neighbor was moving their car at the same time. I saw one vacant space. And I thought, hey, there's got to be another space. She took that one. I looked across the street. There was another space. Of course. It's of course mentality. When you expect it, when you give gratitude. I gave plenty of gratitude right then and there when I saw that coffee, when I saw that parking space. I said, thank you, God. I love it. And I want more of it. It's attitude. So what you do is you grow your positive genes. You start to transform. You start to make a change. You know, what we don't realize is that we set the tone for our children, our grandchildren, and those who look up to us as role models. And what we don't realize is that when we're complaining and we see the world as a negative place, they see it that way. So you can decide to change and become a role model, a positive, or you can decide to stay as you are and complain. He told a story in there, which I really love, is that one time he was giving this lecture or a series of talks about a complaint-free world. And this woman came up afterwards and she said, I really need your help. My kids won't stop complaining. They just complain. And she went in for the next 5 to 10 minutes litany of why these kids are bad and what they're complaining about. And what he said is, well, perhaps you'd like to take the 21-day challenge, and then you could see about being complaint-free. And she said, if it weren't for these darn kids, I wouldn't have anything to complain about. That's our attitude. We make it about them. But we can choose to be different. We can choose to be the role model, and we can see things differently. It's all perception. We can choose. And while he's not suggesting that we remain silent when we have something that we want to see change, he does advocate, Will, that complaining never changed anything. So, of course, I have a story about that. I have an insurance issue around my dental insurance I've been trying to get fixed for a couple of weeks. And a couple of weeks earlier, I was complaining to them. I couldn't understand why they couldn't get it straight. Because they have all this equipment. They have all this hired help. And I couldn't get somebody to help me, but I was complaining. So on Friday, I said, complaints obviously do not work. They did not change, because when I looked, nothing had changed online. All I was trying to do was change my address. Online. So I called them and I enrolled them to work with me. I said, I really need your help. I need this to be solved. Can you help me? Now, they switched me around to a couple people, but they worked with me. They worked with me for a very long time. And she worked with their tech people, and she came back and she said, I do not know why. They do not know why it won't work. But she says, you give me your phone number, I will follow up, and I will get a solution, and I will call you back. Do you see how that's different? My complaining did not change a thing. My partnering with her with my supporting her did. So the idea is you don't have to stay and be silent, but it's the energy you put behind it. It is the request to make a change. It's not to complain about it. You do not have to roll over and say, oh, lay it on me. I don't want to complain. Roll over me again. You do not have to do that. You can be strong. You can be brave. You can be assertive. Don't complain. You just state the facts. Don't put a lot of your emotion into it. And things will happen. Things will change. There's a story in there also about, and it touched me because I see it in the news. There's a story about, they took a control group because they wanted to test out the theory about anger. There's a feeling in a lot of circles and in society that you should not repress your anger, that you should express it. And so they took this control group and another group of students, and they asked them to write an essay about their favorite topic. And they collected the papers from both of these groups, and somebody just went in and wrote F, worst essay I ever read, and handed them back out to everybody. Now half the group, well, everybody really got angered, actually. The whole group got angered because it was all just a slam about something they created. They took half the group and they let them express their anger. They gave them pillows and they said, punch these pillows, do all of this, express your anger. The other group they just put into a quiet room and let them just chill and be cool with it. And then they got back in afterwards and they said, okay, do you want to get even? Do you want to have some revenge against the person who marked your grade? And they said yes. And they said, well, you can make the strongest drink they'll have to drink it. You can put hot sauce, you can put whatever it is. What they found is the people who had punched the pillows had the most aggression and made the most toxic drink for the grader. The people who were the calm, cool heads did not. And I thought about that when I think about every once in a while, I don't watch as much CNN News or Fox News as I used to because there seems to be violent cells. Yeah. But what I'm aware of is like I was struck by this and I thought, maybe we're sending the wrong message to our kids. Maybe all the school violence that's going on is because we think it's okay to act out, to express our violence. I don't know what the story is. But when we express anger and condone the expression of anger, something tells me that that doesn't seem right. That if we really want to have a world that works for everybody, if we really want to have a peaceful world, then we have to learn how to cool and go within and not take it personally. I'm not saying about don't right wrongs. You definitely can right wrongs. But I don't know about this expressing anger bit. It's just something to think about. When you express anger, what does that do for you? How does it make you feel? There was a story in here also about a guy who decided to take the 21-day challenge. And he took it to his office, and he was practicing. And some of his coworkers said, what are you doing? I noticed a difference. And he says, I'm practicing the 21-day challenge without a complaint. And he says, well, you've changed a little. He says, how do you mean? He said, well, when you used to complain, every once in a while you'd go into a rant. And he said, when you rant, you're scary. When you do that, you look really terrified. And so he went home and he shared that with his family, and they agreed. They said, when you go into a rant, you are scary, and we leave the room. It doesn't feel safe. He never realized that. So do you see what a blessing that is? When we stop and we look at our behavior, and we can really change. When we look at some of us get older, the rest of you are getting younger, I'm getting older. We look at what goes on around our world, and we deal with a lot of things that we can make us ill. Anger can cause heart attacks. Stress can cause heart attacks. They did a study. The 7 top prescriptions in the United States deal with stress. 7 out of 7 deal with stress. What does that tell you? Something's not working. We have to look at our life differently. We have to look at what's working for us. How can we look at it differently? How can we be like the blind man? Some of you know this story. There was a farmer who had an old donkey. And one day the old donkey got too close to the well and stumbled and fell in. And the farmer looked down the well, and this donkey's looking up at him, braying like crazy. And the farmer says, there's no way I can get that donkey out of that well. So he decides the donkey's old anyway. He's just going to get a bunch of his farmer friends with a big load of dirt, and they're going to fill in the well and bury the donkey. So they start throwing dirt into the well. And the donkey figures out what's happening and starts to make a terrible racket because it thinks it's doomed. But they keep shoveling. Pretty soon the donkey quiets down. They keep shoveling. So the farmer looks over and he sees what happens is the donkey's doing this, shaking off the dirt and stepping up. Hey, another load of dirt, the donkey shakes it off, steps up. Pretty soon the donkey steps out and out over the well. That's what I'm suggesting you can do with complaints and anger. Shake it off. Step up. Step out. Step out into a new thriving life. Because it's all you. It's all your perception. So when life throws a little bit of dirt your way, shake it off. Step up. Step out. There was a story in here about a minister. If you ever get this book and read it, there are a lot of stories at the end which are really fun. And one of them was about a minister, and it reminded me of my own experiences last week or so. We have a book study, which we've been working on this, discussing in this book. And what I notice is, like last week, the laughter was contagious. There was so much laughter going on. People were just laughing like crazy because we're moving our bracelets. We know it, but we're improving each time. And we're laughing and having a good time about it. And then he says, we are having so much fun. Somebody in the community congregation one Sunday told him, oops, he had to move his bracelet. Somebody did that last Sunday to me. They over here on the side, they said, you got to move your bracelet. So I did, but I'm on day 8 today. I've never been to day 8. So I've been practicing. And I'm willing, if I complain, to go back to day 1 because I know it's making a big change in my life. It's a part of being aware. It's about a way of becoming more joyful in life, becoming more expressive, and having more fun. I'll end up with one other story. There were a stranger came. This story is about a stranger who came into town, and he went to the shopkeeper and he said, "Do you have food for me and a place for me to stay? I'm just passing through." And the shopkeeper says, "No, we have nothing to share. Go elsewhere." So the stranger went down to the bakery. And the baker was a poor little guy. He didn't have very much money. He was down to his last flour and his last eggs. And he didn't know where he was going to get more. And the stranger walks in and said, "I'm looking for a place to have something to eat." And the baker said, "You can share my meal. This is what I have. I'll share it with you." And he did. And he said, the baker said afterwards, "You must be tired and need a place to sleep. You can take my bed." And so he did. And the next day, that stranger got up, and before he went on his way, he said to the baker, thank you very much. Whatever you do first thing today will be what you do the rest of your day. So the baker said, well, I'll make you something to take with you. So he made this meal for the stranger to go. And what he found is, as he continued to bake and use his last supplies, they kept resupplying themselves. So he had more, so he baked more, and he baked more, and the square filled with aroma, and people came and they bought all of his goods, and he was busy until the shop closed. His cash registers overflowed with money from the people. And the shopkeepers who had turned them away came to the baker and said, what did you do? What happened? You had so many customers today and we've had none. And they told him about the story. So the shopkeepers ran after the stranger and they found him on the road and they invited him back. And he came back and they were thinking, oh wow, he's going to work his magic with us. So they fed him and they gave him wine and they gave him a beautiful feather down bed to sleep in and everything. And the next morning, they're standing there bouncing up and down, waiting like little kids for the magic. And the guy said, thank you very much. Whatever you do first today, you will do the rest of your day. And so he left, and they ushered him out the door. They couldn't get rid of him fast enough. And they ran to their shop. And the husband started sweeping the door because he was getting ready for all the customers. And the woman started counting all the coins because she had to have all the change. And that was the first thing they did that day, and that was what they did all day. They were so busy sweeping and counting money, they couldn't take care of the customers that did walk in. So whatever you do the first thing in the morning is what you would want to do the rest of your day. Whether it's a smile, it's a greeting. But what you do is you set the tone for the rest of your day. Think of that. Begin each day as we wish the remainder of our day to unfold. Thank you.